everybody. We are introducing the McCulloch 440 on this episode of Kings of the Woods. Okay, so I got asked the other day by a guy I know. He asked, "Hey Brian, is the McCulloch 440 a good saw?" I said, "Yeah, it's a damn good saw." "Why you ask?" He said, "Because I got a line on one." So I figured, you know what, we'll go ahead and make a little quick episode of Kings of the Woods on this short production saw. And for some reason, they just stopped making it. 9 months they made this. From July of 1962 to August of 1963. I think that's 9 if I did my math right. Whew, a little winded there trying to start it up. I'll tell you why I had a little problem there on that and why it's a little smoky. So, now, 87 cc's of awesome power. This saw had so much, from my understanding, research and development put into it and then just stopped. Why? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. Hopefully somebody does have one of those. But what I do know, this one is super clean. This, at least by the time you look past the gasoline and stuff. But and the dust and everything. But this is one of my cleaner saws that I bought. It's just absolutely awesome. Like I said, 87 cc's of power. Doesn't have the removable back head like a lot of them at the time did. It does have the fixed head on the back, on the side of it and everything. This had, now, for some reason, I don't know why, I couldn't tell you, for this year, they had the auto oiler on them. But other models did not. Auto oiler, fully adjustable, changes the piston, how far it strokes, so how much oil it can do it. Has a manual oiler too. For that year, I looked up other saws and everything. There was the 380, that's a front tank model. I love the top tank designs, by the way. They look fantastic. I love the looks on them. And the 380 was also an auto oiler, but it was on the inside of the gas tank. And they share the same blocks, from my understanding, because it's stamped with both. A lot of them are. So, you can see this one still has its used new oil for chain lubricant and everything on it. So, I mean, paint, it's 98% there. It is just all there. I got a bucking spike laying over there. Don't have it. I don't know how much hard work this thing really did in its life. Couldn't tell you how many chains it has. Still has a hard nose bar on it. I think it's like a 24 inch one. Right side start. I really love those. It's got a round muffler on it. Adjuster, everything. These side covers are getting pretty hard to find these days and stuff like that, because it just breaks right here. There's just very little holding it together and everything. It's overall, this one is in super awesome shape. Now, dropping stuff over there. One thing I will say about it though is they have a carburetor on that is disputed by many to be the best, and people like me, I'm not going to say it's the best. When they work, they work. When they don't, they're problematic. And this one is no exception to that rule, having a problem. And it's specifically the primer itself leaks like a sieve whenever it's sitting, running, stuff like that. O-rings go bad inside of it. Where it attaches to the car body, it can go bad on it. This one leaks through the plunger for it. So I need to try to find a new one. I don't want to convert this one over to a Tildeson simply because I want to keep this one as clean as it is, as original as possible. I may have a primer somewhere on another carb I had. It was in really good shape. And like I said, don't know where it's at. But later on in the 60s, they had conversion kits to put the SDC setup on it. Guys were very common to just take a Tildeson, put it on, and redo some linkages for the throttle, for the choke, and throttle too. But these featured, they had kind of, some of them had it and some of them did. And this one doesn't have that, but some of them had unless somebody's modified this one, I couldn't really tell you. I've seen where they've had auto idle features on some of these types of saws, where if your idle got too high, there's a venturi on the inside that changes the air how fast it flows on an offset butterfly, and that would cause it to close a little bit open, so it had a self-regulated idle. But I've had a few of the saws that I've had come through with pretty much it bypassed that. They would yeah, I know I'm breathing heavy. They would have a spring where it would just make it snap shut so that it would just bypass that. I've seen only one 440 that had a flat back and an air vane governor set up on it. I've only seen one of those, and there's really no information, no books tell about it here, so I don't know if it was just something experimental. But as I said, this one features the original flatback carburetor. When they work, but when they became they were problematic, from the primers to the insides of them. It's a McCulloch design that worked until it just simply didn't. And today rebuild kits are expensive for them. I'm told Tildeson needle and seats can work inside of them. I'm not 100% sure. I've never done that. But it's like $30 for a rebuild kit. The primers are non-rebuildable, at least by the average Joe. I'm told you got to know how to TIG weld to rebuild one of the primers, and let's face it, not everybody has a TIG welder or that kind of skill. So I've seen some images of aftermarket kind of setups that guys have thought of and done with like primer bulbs and everything. But like I say, it's just easier to go to the Tildeson, or if you get an adapter to put the SDC on, which there's somebody I know who was 3D printing out the adapters for the SDC, but you still had to you had to source the SDC carb, and it's a 19 millimeter carburetor, which it worked fantastic, but it might hinder a little power, and you still have to make your own linkages. So I don't know. It's what you could fit, what you could use. I've thought, like I said, in the past, I've thought about Tilly swapping this one, but if it's just the primer having a problem, I'm not going to worry too much about it. I don't use this saw every day, unfortunately. It is a 21.5 pound saw with just the power head on it, and when you compare that to other saws that weighed really similar, such as like the 700 series, you had the 740, which was more power, the 790 that came later on, which is even more, 103 cc. You see real quick how the power went up, but the weight pretty much stayed the same, and this is no exception to it. This is a heavy girl for 87 cc's, but they still earn their keep. They pull big bars with skip tube, chain, up in the Pacific Northwest. I don't know the exact story on this one. It doesn't look like it ever saw that kind of life or anything. It may have been used just as simple stuff and put up, and that was it and everything. And I bought it off a guy locally that lives here not far from me and everything. He came to me, sold me 3 saws. This is the only one I have left. The other ones I traded off and stuff like that for other saws, but this one I just could not let go of. I just love the top tank design. And by this point, McCulloch had decided to keep this top tank design instead of changing it every year, like from the D44 and so on and so forth, S44, you name it. Every year they kept changing until they finally got to the 171. Like, hey, why are we designing a new tank every year? Why don't we just keep this? So that's what I see. They just changed paint color schemes from there on, kept it, streamlined it, probably kept things cheaper too. So, not to confuse these with also a 640. Those have 80cc engines or gear drive, but why McCulloch used the 80cc rather than the 87 in it, I couldn't tell you that either. But that's just how they did stuff and everything back in the day, I guess. It was their idea, but I don't know why they only did 9 months on such an awesome saw that featured an auto oiler, and it had everything McCulloch could have had for the ultimate saw. Had a carburetor with the primer, just press or whatever, pull it, she's running. The choke, when the chokes work, they work. But this one was a shot of gas, fired up, and got it even quicker. Auto oiler, it's like for 1962, 1963, it seemed like it was a brand new thing, and it went away for a little while. I haven't really dug on what other saws had it. I know the 740 didn't. The 790 got it as soon after. I was told Beginning Productions did not, but then they got it right soon after. And then after that, they had the auto oiler that you can see right here on this one is featured on those and on the CP 125 and even the Super Pro 125. They featured on all of those. So, and the fuel tanks and everything are then the oil tanks, my mistake, and the mount for how it mounts on the bottom of the anti-vibration saws. But you know, this design right here just stuck when it comes to the fuel tank and everything. And then as they went to the anti-vibration with the CP125 and so on, they just got rid of it. But they kept at least the top fuel tank design because it seemed to work the best. I think the reason that they kind of scrapped the 87cc line was the 10 series were gaining more power. Well, they were in there, they were getting there, but there was other saws that just had better weight to power ratios that were just coming out, and the guys wanted those. And 87 cc's and 21 pounds, where you can get like another half pound, another pound, and you can have more power. Guys were going for that. But why they didn't put auto oilers on them until later, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But overall, this saw right here is a short production saw, less than a year, 9 months, and it is just, it's got every innovation on it that a guy would want back in the day. And some reason things were taken off and then put back on, swapped here, there, everywhere, and stuff like that. So it's definitely, if you can get your hands on one of these saws, it's not because of out of rarity or anything. It's just it's just really good power. A lot of research and development went into this, and then it's just something stopped. I could not tell you or anything like that. So, but like I say, this whole time we've been talking, that was empty. And this is the problem you get if that leaks. And this one's very guilty of that primer being bad. So I got to replace the primer, find one. Other than that, this saw very rarely gets started because fuel leaking in here is a very big fire hazard. So, like I say, wanted to do a video on this. I got asked that question, and I'm like, yeah, it's a good saw. Yeah, it produces a lot of power and everything. And it's just a good torque monster. Like I say, it's one that's going to stay in my collection and everything like that. And probably needs a good wipe down and cleaning and stuff like that. So I may in the future try to fix the primer and everything, replace it. I can't really fix this one. But I have rebuilt the carb on it before. So we'll probably get into that in the future maybe. But until that day, I hope you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, comment, and we have more saws that we can go over if you have any questions. If I've got it, we'll go over it, we'll look at it and tell the features and stuff like that and everything. So as I get asked, hey, is this a good saw? Yeah, it might be, or no, I wouldn't do that. You know, there's some saws I really look at, Max saws I look at and say, I wouldn't pay that for it, but that's just me. Or some saws just weren't worth their weight to have. So, all right, this will say thanks for watching, and catch you later, guys and gals.